How's everyone doing today? My name is Quinvario Curry, and this is going to be my speech on the legalization of prostitution. So I'd like to start off by saying a quote by Gloria Allred, who is an attorney and human rights activist. Why is it immoral to be paid for something that is perfectly legal and done for free? So every day, millions of people, they go to work, they live their lives, and they work so hard for years to make. But what about those who aren't so lucky? Men and women with records, disabilities, who don't even have the ability to vote. Don't they deserve a life just like you and me? And I'm not here to sway your minds or change your morals, but I do want you to know something. That while we fight the good fight about things that we feel are immoral, unjust, and sometimes victimless, we fail to see the fight that's a bigger problem that we're trying to deal with. The crime that pollutes victimless crimes, like cancer, sex trafficking. I chose to speak about this topic from general interest and confusion. Why is it okay for someone to have a relationship with whom they choose, to hunt tigers and everything for a living? But when someone chooses to basically use their bodies for monetary gain, it is shunned upon in this society. Why might you ask? It's because some people, they choose to believe their morals give them the right to judge someone else's way of life. So let's continue with why this speech is so important. The legalization of prostitution helps in the fight against sex trafficking. Some people like Diane Post, who is a writer for Fair Observer, believe that prostitution and sex trafficking is inescapably linked. In her newsletter, of September 2013, she writes that prostitution is attributed to violence against women. And when you think about prostitutes who are beaten, treated like slaves, and abused, I would think the same thing. Yet why are these women treated so vulgarly? It's because no one has had the idea of just regulating the practice of it. And for centuries, people have worked illegitimate businesses and come up either injured or even worse, dead. And I wouldn't want to even tell you what happened to their families who are left in these precarious situations just after something happens with no happy ending in sight. Within Diane's article, she also writes that over half the world's population is left in these extreme states of poverty, making less than $1 a day. Of these individuals, 70% are women. She even goes on to say that these economic reasons kind of force women into prostitution, and that this doesn't constitute consent. So one thing that I was raised with, and I'm sure many others were raised with, is the idea that you have a choice in whatever you choose to do. And for those who choose to take in part the industry of bedside therapy, they have made their choice too, which should be respected, not treated as a clutch or something that they were forced into for any reason. But are those choices respected? A statistic from Melissa Ditmore's Encyclopedia on Prostitution links the hatred from prostitution and sex trafficking and women who are actually captured. In Nepal, researchers like Sharma Mahindra do fear-based messaging and emphasize the links between trafficking, prostitution, and HIV, and how it condemns women who are trafficked and girls for bringing HIV back into their communities upon return, to the extent that 94% of these adolescent girls report that these communities regard returnees with hate. The statistic, as shocking as it is, leads to the fact that without reasonable doubt, women who are so much involved in sex trafficking are treated with disrespect for being forced into a life that they never asked for. So we've talked somewhat about the problem, but let's talk about the solution. Let's consider that the legalization of sex workers gives these women the respect and avenues that are the same as being a lawyer or a massage therapist. Not only would they find a principle of redemption with returning from people who are willing and unwilling in these situations, but the order that soon comes out there will be substantial. In a biography from Dennis Hoff, he added that there are currently 20 local brothels that are currently inside Nevada, just like this one. So one thing that they do inside these brothels is they institute safety for the women and the people who are customers there, the same way we institute safety for those who publish marijuana in this state. It's a highly regulated industry, which women perform weekly STD checks, and they carry around a sex worker registration card, which varies in price from county to county. There was also talks about taxing these prostitution rings by $5 a night, which will bring in the state a profit of around $2 million. As of right now, the tax incurred by these businesses topple well over the hundreds of thousands. So there's benefits to the economy, but also these taxes that they use, they also come in by helping doctors, police officers, and even public schools. The legalization of prostitution not only fights the issue, but it creates a better future for some people who are missing. If you don't believe me, let me tell you the story about 24-year-old Carla Jacinto. She was born in a small city in Mexico, which is known for their sex trafficking ring. She was abducted at the age of 12 from her home, and for her estimate, she was raped a total of more than 43,000 times before the age of 16. She spoke to a CNN reporter, Rafael Romo, who basically told about how she was constantly raped by men, and when she decided that she would resist, she was beaten with cables and choked. And even after losing her first child and trying to take her own life, in 2008, she was rescued by an anti-trafficking ring in New Mexico City. Her story is one of thousands, some who are still missing. And what does this tell you? That behind the shade of a hidden industry, there are still thousands of women out there missing. And what are we going to do about it? The reason that I've asked you all to listen to my speech is to call you all to take action towards the legitimized practice of sex workers, to reduce the sex trafficking of our children and legitimize the practice in itself. The fight against the injustice towards women and adolescent girls, the regulation of a hidden industry to gain better control over something we no longer can ignore. Throughout history, people have fought for the right to safety, regulated business hours, and personal freedom. And this labels the backbone of our society. One of the reasons why I think America is so great is because we know when and how to fight together when something we feel is not right. So without nothing more to be said, I'll let you choose what you think is right.